Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Meredith Lego, and I'm very excited today to bring you more content on the expansion of consciousness or the ascension of consciousness, or that ascension process and some of the mechanics behind it. And today's video is going to talk upon some more technical stuff that I ended up being able to channel from a collective consciousness of beings. And I did this just after meditation, which is when I'm able to connect in very well. So this particular topic is going to focus more on the shifting or evolution of our DNA through this particular process. And I love these particular types of sessions because it gets into more of the mechanics or the technical side of what's going on. So I did ask a question around this particular session, and this was done with, again, a collective consciousness. But before I did, I heard very clearly a particular sentence that kicked it off, but oddly enough, it ended up coming up later on in the channeling session as well. And it's a math term, and it's been a long time since I've taken a math class, so I had to obviously look it up after I channeled this. So the first thing that I heard was, basically, you are in a logarithmic design. Okay, so you are in a logarithmic design. And logarithmic, again, I had to look it up, is the exponent or power of which a base must be raised to yield a given number. So a logarithmic scale is a non-linear scale for accelerated change. So essentially, and I don't have this kind of drawn out, but hopefully you can follow me here. If you kind of, if you have like an X and a Y axis that you might have learned of in school, you can have like a linear line, but a logarithmic line is going to like slope up very fast. So, you start to increase your power essentially. And I might be butchering this because I do a lot of algebra right now for my job as part of what I do, but I didn't do a lot of logarithmic stuff in school, except for the few times that I did learn it. So excuse me if I'm butchering it. So that was the first topic that came out. You are basically in a logarithmic design. So the question that I was actually wondering about is, it ties back to a couple of videos ago. I talked about the concept of transharmonic, which is simply the changing of different resonant frequencies or oscillations of waves. So they talked about that and how that's starting to happen with shifts of consciousness. So the question I was asking, and I was trying to tie it to actually what's going on inside of the body. So is the transharmonic silicate design the same as the conversion of carbon to silicate to crystalline transition? So that's kind of a complex question, but essentially, and I'll try and post this video. There was a video that I did, maybe, one of the first ones that talked about what's naturally happening or changing within the human body is the concept of shifting the DNA from more of a carbon-based to a silicate-based to a crystalline-based. And why that's important is that crystals, essentially are core to the earth, but they carry strong amount of information codes. And what we learned along the way is that light, if you kind of go back to the earlier videos that I did on changes of the human body and the DNA, essentially the concept of liquid light plasma starting to essentially change the information codes or DNA within our body. There was a connection between that and the fact that it's starting to create more of a crystalline DNA design. I don't claim to understand that enough, and I still have to ask a lot more questions around that. But I, was going back to the original concept that we'd be shifting essentially from carbon to silicate to crystalline. And I was curious again, is the transharmonic silicate design the same thing as going through this shift? So while we might be shifting, let's say, the energy of our frequency, in an etheric sense, is this what's happening with the actual physical body? So the answer that I got back in response is in the organic path of ascension, the carbon atoms are losing/gaining electrons to become silicon. An ionization process with magnetized properties due to the union of feminine and masculine energies, or magnetic and electrical energies, occur. So this occurs as light codes alter the DNA sequence. The evolution is natural, whereas the transhuman path is synthetic or inorganic. The source code is of another frequency and controlled. So backing up a little bit, just to kind of go over that, so in some ways they didn't necessarily answer the question all the way, but basically ended up talking again about the concept of organic ascension versus inorganic ascension, but did obviously mention that organic ascension, you're basically, so you've got a carbon atom and it's losing or gaining electrons to become silicon. Now, it's been a long time since I took chemistry. That was in high school for me. And I didn't necessarily, look this up, or did I? Let me see if I did. No, I didn't. Sometimes I make notes afterwards. But yeah, so essentially the carbon atom is gaining or losing electrons to become silicon. So the ionization process, so that is the process where I think you've got either more, or you don't have like an equal balance between electrons and protons. I think that creates an ionization process. So an ionization process with magnetized properties due to the union of feminine and masculine energies, or magnetic and electrical energies, occurs. So this occurs as the light codes, or the photons, which are carrying intelligent information, essentially alter the DNA sequence. So again, going back to some of the videos that I did on light and photon can carry information. So this creates essentially an evolution, and that process is starting to turn carbon into silicate just because of the ionization that's going on, and the change in the properties of the electrons to the protons inside of the atoms. That's what it kind of sounds like. Now what they're saying is that the evolution is natural when it occurs this way, whereas when it's done through some other path, I assume like the transharmonic path, is more synthetic or inorganic. And when you're using the organic method, using light and that ionization process, it's going to be very natural. So there's a natural law or a natural source code that's coming in to make those evolutionary adjustments within the body. Whereas the inorganic path, of the transhuman path, is going to create a different information source or code, but it's not the same frequency. And what they're saying here is that it's controlled. So they go on to say that there are multiple paths to evolution, and consciousness will experience both. So that's implied that, look, consciousness is going to try all potential avenues, organic path and inorganic path. I mean, we kind of see it playing out on our planet right now. But both hold different frequencies. The transhuman path cannot evolve in multidimensional ascension past a certain point because the connection to the heart frequencies are severed. So I think this is really key. The transhuman path cannot evolve in multidimensional ascension past a certain point because the connection to the heart frequencies are severed. So the heart is obviously generating its own frequency. It's like its own, intelligent body. It's its own consciousness, and it's going to be vibrating at a certain frequency rate, that's obviously impacting your entire, electromagnetic field and all the other organs and intelligent consciousness going on inside your body. So, essentially, it sounds like it, transharmonic, where you're maybe introducing technology or AI into your physical body, is going to, obviously cut some of the resonance effect that your organs and your heart might be able to generate with other parts of your body. And this is where this word logarithmic comes in again. So they basically say that full or logarithmic ascension requires that connection. So in order to essentially do a logarithmic ascension, and that kind of reminds me of the concept of Stargate Ascension. So in order to, move up that path at a more accelerated rate, you've got to have that connection, that connection, that multidimensional connection to the heart frequency, which is really key. And so what they say is that if you don't have that evolution, I'm reading this backwards. So in this particular way, evolution is not stunted. So I guess the reverse is if you choose to go down a transhuman path, your evolution will be stunted. Yeah, and I think that's all that was provided in this particular session. Then I have notes here on what logarithmic means, because I just didn't remember it. And then I also wanted to look up carbon versus silicon. So carbon is a non-metal, silicon is a metalloid, but have 4 electrons in the outer energy layer. So I don't know if that helps anything, but I was just curious about, going back to chemistry and trying to understand that a little bit more. So that to me was a pretty interesting lesson, or channeling. Obviously stresses the importance, again, of organic ascension versus doing anything that would cause your body to have an interaction with inorganic, maybe AI-driven, technology-driven types of stuff that would be entering into your body, because it essentially is changing the natural frequencies that your body and the organs inside of your body, they're all intelligent consciousness, pieces that work together for your whole being. So it's essentially going to impact the natural communication that's going on between those. And the really important one is the connection to the heart. Because in many ways, that's where you create that connection to the 0 point, and then to the source field or the quantum field connection. That point of the 0 point in the that flow. I'm trying to remember what Ascended Master Hilarion called it, but he called it the infinity path, or the infinity road, where you're essentially creating an equal balance between your magnetic and your electrical energies, or your feminine and your male energies. So really key. So I don't know if these choice points will come up for you. As they come up for me, obviously I'm going to be heeding that advice and not necessarily putting something into my body that is not natural or organic. So with that, I hope this has helped your understanding of some of the mechanics that go into multidimensional expansion of consciousness. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please share it with others, because obviously I'm doing this to try and help more of humanity down this natural path. So with that, lots of love, and I will see you in future videos. Thanks very much. Bye.